Legends speak of 12 seeds, gifted to unite the mortal realm. But unity crumbled into ambition, ambition decayed into greed, and a lust for power cast the world into chaos. For 1,000 years, those who held the seeds have scoured the wastelands of Ara, desperate for another to emerge. None did. Until now. A new breed of evil has emerged. And if they are not stopped, they could unravel the very fabric of creation itself.
The darkness is spreading. It seeks to consume you. But you are not alone. There is hope. I will stand with you, unshaken by the shadow's grasp. I am a celestial guardian, defender of creation. I am Gabriel!
What's up, everybody? Welcome. We're live here on the channel over here at RippaVerse. I know I just got through seeing some of you guys because we were streaming early on Ripping the Silverback. So thanks to you all for joining us. We got a very, very special panel. Today was a big launch for us with RippaSend, or over at RippaSend. Issue number 0, chapter 0 of Gabriel and the Guardians is officially live. We have it linked. It's pinned in the comment section. It's also linked in the description, so go grab that if you have not already. A lot of you already have, and we appreciate you so much. Of course, today we're going to be talking everything Gabriel and the Guardians. We're going to have a lot of fun, and of course, I'm joined by some, again, very, very special guests, people that were very integral to making this whole thing happen. So before we get going, I'm going to just really go round table. Everybody's going to let everybody know kind of what their involvement is with Gabriel and the Guardians. I got to start with one of the creators of Gabriel, Jason, Andrew Moody. Brother, what's going on and how you doing?
Hey man, thank you for doing this. We're so excited to be a part of the Rippa family. You know, this is very cool, and we have a a pretty kind of the way this came about.
It's own, natural, as organic as it gets.
It's its own story, right?
Oh man, it's something I think we're going to be talking about for years to come, because it was just as organic as it got. And yeah, we're talking about something completely unrelated, and then this happened. So I'm glad that we can make this happen. This is something that we're obviously blessed to be a part of, for sure. And we're going to be pushing very, very hard for this, the animation as well. Yeah. Gabriel himself is here. You know him, Johnny Yong Bosch. He is a legend. And I said legends for a reason, because between both Johnny and James, they've done so much between the two of them. Gabriel himself is here. Johnny, how you doing, brother?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having us.
Oh, of course. And Mr. James Arnold Taylor, brother, how you doing?
Oh, I am so great. Thank you so much for having me here. It is such a pleasure. Anytime I get to be sharing a microphone with Johnny Yong Bosch and the amazing cast that we have is a thrill. But what Jason has put together with Al and David and everybody there is really special stuff. And I'm just so thrilled about it. Yeah.
I got to upgrade my thing here, man. James, you got this crazy looking. It's cool. The studio in the spot.
Yeah, and Johnny's got his like, it's like Malacros is behind him.
It's the mothership. Yeah.
It's a UAP behind you, Johnny.
Yeah,
that's good. All right, so just to again, just kind of go right into it, Jason. Just break it down. You're one of the creators, so what really inspired the creation of Gabriel and the Guardians?
Yeah, it's so I don't come from the industry at all, and I didn't really come from comics or animation. I was working in e-learning at JP Morgan Chase. I'd been doing that for 15 years. And when COVID hit, I think we all had a lot of kind of time on our hands, and, work kind of slowed down. And I was listening to a podcast. My wife and I were listening to a podcast called The Bible Project. And, just super fascinating. Dr. Tim Mackey just going deep on Genesis. And I just became fascinated with the book of Genesis. I honestly, like, we just became fascinated with it. I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I started watching tons of documentaries and reading some interesting books on the world of Genesis and the antediluvian sort of space. And, and that inevitably leads you to, reading about culture. What were the cultures that were taking place at that time? The Sumerian cultures, the Akkadians, and then discovering some very, almost ancient alien-esque elements to some of those cultures and some of that stuff, and just captured my imagination. And I couldn't help but just, start sketching. I grew up drawing as a kid, and I was like, I hadn't drawn in a few years at that point, honestly. Like, I'd done a project a few years before, but then kind of just fell out of it. And so I was like, I'm going to go get a sketchbook, I'm going to start drawing these characters, drawing, Noah, but interpreting it in my own way. And then when I started to think about the idea of, what about these celestial beings that keep on popping up in the Old Testament? What about the man, that shows up in Daniel that is named Gabriel, and he has eyes like lightning and hair like fire, and it's like, whoa, who is that guy? And we all know these legendary kind of angel beings, these angelic sort of beings, but it was like, man, what if you could kind of tell a really interesting story that is the narrative of Genesis, but bring in the perspective of these angelic beings. What were they doing at that time? And then it just kind of spun out from there, man. Like, I just we kind of started in this historical idea of like a historical antediluvian, and then eventually, like, we landed in this idea of like, well, what if we created our own fantasy world? Like, what if it was just inspired by the antediluvian world and the world of Genesis, and we kind of told our own spin and our own tale. And I mean, that's really where it kind of birthed out of.
That's awesome, and I love the approach. Obviously, you put it in your own fantasy world, and I think this is for sure. We talk about culture all the time in today's day and age, and I think this is such a great way to kind of package that. So I think everybody that's seeing Gabriel, as far as the animation, how legit it is, but the fact that it really does have that story is always going to be what really keeps it around. And Johnny, with you playing such an integral role in this project, and you're very, very invested. We know that you did the intro music as well. You can kind of talk about that. But what really drew you to this project? Because a man of your stature, you don't have to take on. You kind of get to pick your spots, right? But what made you want to be a part of Gabriel and the Guardians?
Well, actually, Jason, a long time ago, he was working on this other project, and we kind of connected on that one, and then it didn't really go anywhere, and years had passed, and then he kind of showed up out of the blue with this new thing. And I was like, all right, well, let me see it. And then it was like, well, it's like angels. And I was like, that to me is very fascinating. Just the supernatural battle, angels and demons. I'm like, I'm into it already just on that. And I'm like, that already seemed really exciting, just to kind of to explore that world. And and it changed too from the very first thing that I was sent, and then it started to evolve and morph into this whole other thing, and it's been really kind of cool. Like, every person that has come in has kind of like added an extra thing, like James like came in and did his thing, and it was like, oh, that's what that guy's gonna sound like, that's nice. And then just hearing those, it started to become like this organic thing that was like, oh no, this thing's gonna become this thing on its own, right? And so it's just, I don't know, it was just something that was neat to be a part of just in the early stages, and then just see pieces come together. And then, at that point, you just kind of go like, all right, well, let's ride this wave and see where it goes.
Yeah, most definitely. And just to follow up on that, with you doing, a lot of people may not know about that. As a fellow musician, I'm very intrigued by that, because when Jason had told me about you being involved in like the intro and all of that, what was it like with kind of, again, that really does really solidify that you're very, very invested in it, to also be kind of representative in that intro. So what was that like?
I don't remember how that came about, to be honest. But I know that I had sent maybe a couple different passes. Like I was working on a few different, like after we were like, hey, with an intro, I was like, yeah, okay, let me see what that would be like. And I think originally you wanted to pick a song from like maybe my old.
Well, I was an iShine fan, right? So like I like I'm a Johnny fan. Like honestly, my favorite anime was Trigun, and so like it came very honest of like, dude, like what if you did a song for the show, like, and and then when you were,
I know that you at first like said you wanted to, like, I think pick an iShine song, and you're like, well, like want to pick a few songs or whatever, and I was like, I'd rather kind of write something for it,
I was like, oh, for real? You actually write something?
And I remember I had done like I made a bunch of like ideas, and then there was like maybe 2 or 3 that kind of like stuck out to me. And then I remember just sending you maybe just like real rough music stuff, like instrumental stuff. And then I think that you landed on that one. I was like, okay, all right, good. And then I just kind of focused on that to see where it would go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, James, we got to move to you because it's funny. I just had met you on a completely separate note. Last year, I was telling the story behind stage with Jason. That we had linked up. I believe it was Denver, was it not? Like Denver Fan Expo. It was one of the expos last year or something that we had got a chance to chat. And then here we are with this project. So it's like kind of fun how all that happened. What drew you to the project with Gabriel and the Guardians?
Well, it's kind of like that in all of it for me. I always kind of look at like these little God winks in my life, that God drops me into these wonderful places with people, beautiful, wonderful people and talented people. I'm so blessed to do that. And it was one of these things. I had made a movie, and Dan Hazeltine, who is the lead singer of the band Jars of Clay, I actually had wanted him to do the music in the film, and we were going to, and it didn't end up working out, but we're friends, and he's a Clone Wars fan. We're talking. And then he texts me and he goes, hey, I got these friends that they're looking for some voice talent for this project. Would you be interested? I'm like, well, sure. Yeah. I'm always, interested in hearing about stuff. And so he had texted, and then so Jason, we had like a mutual friend between all of us connect us. And then it was this great thing where I get on a Zoom with Jason and Al and David. And we just start talking and seeing we have just so much in common, and we're really excited about it. And then it was like, well, who else could we get? So my wife was actually very fortunate to do actually some of the casting for this first season. Certainly the first couple of episodes, she did the casting for it. And so we got to get Matt Lanter in and all that too, and Christina Malizia, and it was very cool. So I just was blessed to be working on something that had an amazing, powerful message, but also looks amazing. And I mean, Jason is selling himself short on his artwork and such. He's a wonderful artist, a wonderful talent, and a wonderful storyteller. So the biggest thing I want to leave everybody with too is creators out there. Remember what he said. He was like working at JP Morgan, and now he's got a show on Angel, and he's got a comic with RippaVerse, and he's doing this show that is amazing and creating more things. You can do it, man. Pursue your dreams and know that you can go after them. That's the big thing.
I agree with that, man. Like, and I say this a lot. That part of my philosophy as this started to pick up steam was every no is just a data point to your yes. Like, just don't let it get you down, because you're going to get no's, but let it be a statistic that the probability of the next answer is greater of being a yes now, because you just got another no. So next time it's statistically more likely that you're going to get a yes. And I just I took that as my model. I do want to say, like, it's funny, James, that's your perspective on that story. I don't think I'd ever heard you tell it from your side of Dan reaching out to you. From my side, I'd never met Dan, but I got introduced to him and we had coffee. And we had this really great conversation. And then he was like, he was like, I got a buddy who does cartoon voices. And I was like, man, it felt bad, because I was like, man,
so does everybody.
I had so many people that wanted to sell their buddy to me doing voices. And I was like, okay, cool. And then he sent me your information, and I looked you up, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it was very cool. Very cool.
That's awesome. Johnny, while we still have you here, of course, I have to ask you about just when you lend your voice to an original project. You have those characters that have been around that obviously you've done before. I know you've done original characters, so I have to ask, what's the difference in the approach in giving that character that voice versus one that the audience may be already familiar with, or versus like something like Gabriel, which is a completely new and original IP?
You know, it depends on what's on the page, really, because I know the first pass, he wasn't really fleshed out, and it came across more like the biblical version of him. And I remember making him sound a little more mature. But then Jason has said, well, what about something a little younger? And he kind of was like, maybe a Vash kind of, tone. And I'm like, okay, but then like how young? And I was like, I don't know what that would be like. And then the more we thought about that, I was like, well, all right, I'll just try it, And I remember just kind of laying it down with whatever the dialogue was at that point. And then it's just more, I think it just took more time coming back, and there's more rewrites. And then I started to get this picture in my head of who he was. Like, well, he's like this young angel. He hasn't really experienced a whole lot. And then I started seeing those kind of things in the script, and then I was like, oh, this is going to give me a little more to play with. And then you just do those pieces, and then you ad-lib a little bit here and there, and then they take that and they write something based off of that, and then it just became this thing where I was like, oh, this is kind of a neat place to have this character where he's like this extremely powerful being, but not having the full knowledge of, what he's capable of.
He's so naive,
he's discovering,
right?
Yeah, he's naive. He's going to discover who he is. And then that just kind of started to show up more in the script. And it was like, that point, I was like, okay, so it feels like we're all sort of on the same page at this point. And so it was more of like just going for it, really. And then the script really, the dialogue started to change, I think,
He's young as Celestials go, just a ripe 1600 years old.
Right, exactly.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I felt so bad watching the episode, the first episode. I feel so bad for him having to leave that beautiful place, man. Tending his garden and just having fun. Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, James, I guess what is your approach as well? Because definitely with all the Star Wars and all that stuff that you've done, you got characters that have been around, and then you're again, same thing, coming up with these new original characters. Like, do you change your approach? How do you kind of, again, breathe life into these characters?
It's always different. I've been very blessed to have kind of a versatile character roles, from Obi-Wan Kenobi to Johnny Test to Fred Flintstone, or, all in between. And so this was like, what can we do that is different and new? Also, I get to play the bad guy, which is kind of cool. I'm usually the good, Final Fantasy X, I was Tidus, and Ratchet and Clank, I'm, the hero. So now I get to be the bad guy. I like that. And Matt Lanter gets to be a good guy. The chosen one, he's kind of good. I don't know. But, so for me, it was really fun. Jason and David and Alan, I got in the room in the room together. I was in my studio here, and they were patched in, and we were just kind of playing with the voices, what would the sound like? And Jason would send me scripts. What about this? Okay, try this. And so Malacros is, he's just, well, we haven't really heard a lot of him yet, right, by the way. And also I'm looking, by the way, on the chat, Danica McKellar is in there. Did you see that? And she is on the show.
So for those who don't know,
her son is on the show.
She is there. Yeah, I see her there. Yeah.
And so, hey, Danica. And Jay David is out there.
I saw Jay come in. Shout out to Jay, man. Much love to you.
Shout out to Jay.
Look at that. Look at that.
Do a little shout out for him there. Everybody, get that. You want that?
You can also get that at RippaSend.com.
That's right. Get it. I'm just tying all the things in.
Danica and her son actually did have roles in the show.
Both of them. Yeah.
Which is cool.
Really cool. But and then I get to do Dianelle, who is different. And that was really kind of fun, being just, this wonderful kind of fatherly figure to Johnny's Gabriel is fun. And the fun part is we didn't do it together at first. And so the first time we did it together was on stage at a Comic-Con. Yeah. And we're like, we're sitting on opposite ends of the table, and Johnny like looks over like, "Is that you, James?" It was a lot of fun. We had a fun time doing it. So I love coming up with new voices.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, I mean, Johnny playing the main character. I mean, Gabriel. Did it help seeing him as far as the voice is concerned? Because I don't know how far along in the process you guys were with like maybe sketching out concept art and all that stuff. Does that help kind of when you're trying to form his voice, when you actually like physically get to see that character?
Yeah, no, there was actually a drawing, but you know, it was, even if you look at him, well, now that I've already done the voice and we've kind of, it's all I hear is that one version of him now.
Yeah.
But there was certainly, I pictured him a little more. I instinctively was like, oh, he's got to sound like more mature and powerful. But then, yeah, but it did start. There's a starting place, you know. But I don't know. I think it was really earlier on though. Once we found like you just said young voice. Was it like, can you try something young?
Yeah.
And I remember at first like not really feeling comfortable with that, but then just doing it.
Well,
it wasn't.
Sorry, John. I was just going to say, I think by the time that I had put together something that I felt comfortable sending you, he had aged. Like I had him young, and then I aged him up, like in the art. And so, like in the art that I sent you, he was more like a 20-something.
That's what I remember, but
yeah.
You know, I don't even know if it was in color either, though. But all I now see is the version that we have now.
Yeah.
But I know it was a process because he wasn't even really fleshed out. Even as well, you guys talked about that. Like he wasn't fleshed out, and it was like, well, all these other characters are now sounding more interesting. What are we going to do with Gabriel?
Yeah,
and there's a lot of going back through and then adding these little bits and pieces to him to kind of like really dial in who he is. Which I think you end up seeing a lot more of in episode 2.
Well, and I think, I mean, we did a poll on our Discord. Who was your favorite character? You know, and I mean, Gabriel won, right? And there was a time when I don't know that would have happened because there was a point in the script writing process when we had given Nock this really interesting backstory, and he had all these really interesting lines, and Namaya had really, you know, they were complex characters, and you had Malacros and you had Dinah, and Gabriel just had this sort of like, you know, it was like he's the hero, and it just didn't have there was like not really a personality per se, but Johnny was doing this great voice, and so we started to go down the idea of like, well, what if he was just super like sincere but on the verge of naive, and then at some point someone said, yeah, what if he was kind of like a mix between like Buddy the Elf and Goku and like, yeah, I don't even know, a warrior, and it was like, yeah, Buddy the Elf being a warrior.
Buddy the Elf. Yeah, because he's so sweet, and he's like just like happy to be there, and he's about to be dropped into so much bad stuff. Just like,
Johnny's right. Episode 2, man, when those 3 characters get together, I mean, there's something really fun, really like Nakamaya and Gabriel kind of cutting it up and having to solve some things together is like.
Do you see more of the dynamic differences between them and how they all actually really work together well?
Yeah.
There you go. So yeah, Johnny, I have another question that I wanted to for sure like ask you, definitely with you being around for as long as you have voiced so many characters. We're kind of living in this newer age. A lot of, let's say, far more independent projects are popping up, and people are really giving it a shot to do kind of their own media. How has the industry, if you can kind of put that into perspective, just changed so much, even from the voice actor's perspective, from when you first got going versus now, when just the sheer variety of different projects that you can jump on?
Gosh, it's like the hardest question to answer. It's changed in so many ways, and there's the threat of a bunch of AI now, you know. And so things can, you know, I'm sure you see that too. Like people just start throwing up like comics and stuff. Half the time when I'm going through YouTube, I'm like, wait a minute, that's not a real person talking. So there's you know, thankfully, you know, I got into this a long time ago, so I was able to establish my own voice and who I am. But yeah, I've seen it change. But it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about anime, it's there's hardly any time. Like everything's got to be done super quick. Whereas before they used to have more time. They recorded on tape, and now it's all digital, and so there's, they can stretch and move and tweak some of the dialogue. You don't have to like constantly do it over again. And I mean, a lot of things have changed. I do see also though there's more independent projects, which I think is actually really cool, because out of Hollywood we're getting a lot of the same stories or recycled stories, not getting a whole lot of original stuff, which is fine. But you want to have these like this, where it's like a new idea, a new project, and there's some extra level. There's a different excitement for that,
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I guess there's all kinds of ways, James. Maybe you probably have a better answer for that. You've been doing this for a while too, right?
Oh gosh. Yeah, it is crazy to see the changes in it. And as you talked about, the technology alone does it, but also just the acting. I mean, in the 90s, it was all about the grunge and they wanted us low key and the acting was supposed to be tucked under. But that doesn't work for voiceover, man. I mean, it's like, how do you, and the animators start going, how do we animate this? How do you, and there's all that. And so then it gets bigger. And then it's, well, we pull back. We don't want character. We want real, and I mean, I've been 38 years I've been doing this stuff, and you see all the variations of it, and then all the good stuff kind of comes back. And now the beautiful thing is like what you're doing at RippaVerse and what's happening with Jason and what he's doing, and then even Angel and all that, is all of the things that everybody kind of picked up through their childhood and loved, and it really stuck to them, are now coming out in these new projects that are independent projects that are changing the face of entertainment, in my opinion, and really making it to where we find things that we recognize, yet they're new. And so we love the familiarity, we love the Easter egg of it, but at the same time, we love the new stories and the new characters that Hollywood at this point, I just don't think is able to do, because they're so obsessed with, creating the next thing, that they're not looking at all the amazing talent that is out there right now. I mean, there's all the people on your chat alone. I'm sure there's so many talented artists and people out there creating things. And that's the beautiful part of it.
I think the biggest challenge for the independent stuff though, is that we have to, like, the audience is used to seeing these big budget anime, big budget, whatever, like there's money behind all these other projects. So your independent project has to match that in some way, the story and your acting, and animation. So there's like, you have to, that's the tricky part, I think, for the independent project though, is to kind of live up to that expectation
with no money.
With a lot less money.
But it's actually kind of cool. It actually like forces us to innovate. Because with Gabriel, like, we had to innovate so much, because we were trying to look even in the ballpark.
Yeah, trying to be competitive. Yeah,
big boys. We want to be competitive, but we don't have even a fraction of the budget. And well, I guess technically we did have a fraction of the budget.
Yeah,
but we had to try to make more out of less. And what that does is that in that pinch is where art, I think, really starts to come alive. That's like, it's in the stretch, it's in the pinch.
Well, I mean, if you even look at George Lucas, right? I mean, he wanted to work outside of the system, and so he created things that nobody else would do or could do, and sometimes for no budget, and yet it changed the world in the way that we look at stuff now. And that's, I think, you had those opportunities. The good news is you have someone like Jason who I think is very innovative and sees that. I mean, Eric, I think you've done that as well with RippaVerse. You're like, okay, I'm going to put my spin on this and make this something. And I don't necessarily need all this, but how can I make it work this way? And that's where the innovation comes in. And that's why I think it's really kind of an exciting time for creators.
I'd agree. I agree with that 100%. Like, I mean, right now is just really an exciting time. It does force you to have to be kind of forward thinking. You have to be creative, because the audience may be kind of pushing an expectation on you in comparison and comparing you to people with budgets that are, it's just dwarfing yours. So you have to be creative, but I do find a lot of intrigue out of that, a lot of fun. It's kind of even therapeutic for me to kind of figure that out and put the pieces, put together the puzzle there. So yeah, it is a fun time right now, and I'm glad that we're all linking up here. Johnny, before we get you out of here, I want you to just give a quick pitch, quick sell to the audience that's watching this on Gabriel and the Guardians, which they can go see. Of course, a preview on our channel, but you also should go over to Angel, become an Angel Guild member, and you can go check out the full first episode.
Yeah, you want me to pitch it?
Please.
Come on, Johnny.
Did you not already pitch this thing? Well, yeah, it's if you're looking for some fun, exciting new anime with a really cool story and great characters, and the first episode you can actually go. Where's the link, Jason? I don't know where. You can watch it for free.
Yeah,
I have it on my social.
The link
media.
is in our
you
bios
can't find it anywhere
on
else.
Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Instagram
in our bios. You know, if you find us on social media, Instagram, you can find it in the bio. You have to sign up. You don't have to sign up to join the guild necessarily to be able to watch the first episode, but the guild does give you a bunch of the behind the scenes, and then there's, I think, maybe a commentary that's coming up and a few other, you get additional things. I think there's also a sneak peek in it too, right?
We did a really cool, like, hour-long roundtable discussion. You and me and our showrunner David and Al, and you get that if you sign up if you pay for the guild membership. But yeah, you can watch it for free though. Yeah,
but well, I mean, just going there anyways and supporting the show is going to help us.
That is
yeah, but yeah, it's just a fun, exciting show, and it's new and it's fresh, and it's colorful. It looks great, and of course, not me, but everyone else is great in it. And
you're great in it.
Check it out. It's a fun.
We have a rockin' intro that a certain band called
Where Giants Fall. Yeah, those guys, they're all right.
No, I appreciate you, Johnny. It's awesome to have you obviously a part of this, considering just, I mean, all that you have done, and you really, I mean, lack of better terms, put your foot in this role. I think a lot of people are going to fall in love with Gabriel. So guys, please go check that out. I know, Johnny, you got to kind of take off, and again, we'll be doing more of these along the way. We'll be talking the prequel. We'll be talking the first episode. We'll be talking all that in the upcoming week. So again, brother, I appreciate you so much for joining.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys. You guys have fun.
See you, Johnny.
See you, Johnny. See you.
Don't go anywhere. We're still going to chat.
Yeah.
But if you are going to leave, go buy an issue of issue 0 of Gabriel issue 0.
Please, you can go to, I'll actually pull it up one last time here. You can go right over to RippaSend.com. If you go to RippaSend.com/GATG, it'll take you, of course, to the bio page, which has everything. Guys, if you want to check out like even the actual episodes, we have everything. We have everything on here. So just go to RippaSend.com/GATG and you can get all of that information. Go get the prequel. We'll be producing, give us some time. We'll give you some more information, new artists, all that stuff. As far as the actual manga is concerned, we're looking to start shipping this on the latter half of March. It'll start probably a lot quicker than that, but we always put obviously our dates out there because we don't want to kind of overcommit there. So yeah, appreciate y'all so much for supporting this. As I mentioned, you can see the first, if you just want just ease of access, right? It's right there on our YouTube. The first like 11 minutes or so of Gabriel and the Guardians. You can see that. Go check it out. Leave a comment, share it out, do all of the stuff. And of course, the manga is going to be something that you're going to want to keep up with. Jason, I guess we can speak to that. What was the idea to approach that first? Like, because look, with anime and manga, we all know, we talked about this off air, that relationship is really something that I value so much. I wish Western companies did it a lot more, where there's this sort of synergy between the two. One sells the other, and it's because they operate as this one cohesive unit. I love that so much about it. You want it the first time they saw it in a traditional kind of, just read from the opposite way, just like you're getting the true Japanese experience there. What was that approach with the we don't have David here, but maybe he's giving you some insight on that approach as well, because I know he had a lot to do with the writing, to start with like more or less a prequel to really lay that foundation for Gabriel and the Guardians as far as the manga is concerned, the print.
Yeah. So I mean, so David Cunningham is our showrunner, and he head writer, and so we've worked hand in hand to kind of create this world. When it started to become like, man, we're kind of building our own universe here,
that's exactly what you guys are doing.
Yeah. and so I mean, there, you know, when you start to dive into that, it's just like, it's hard to stop. You just keep on thinking about how much more deep can we go. And we started talking, it's like, oh man, we're almost making a Silmarillion for the biblical narrative. Like that's almost like, it's like, that's kind of where we're at. Like, it's like, and so there was so much backstory, like where we decided to come in with the actual episode. It was just, by the time we did that, there was already so much backstory that we had developed. We were like, what if we started, you know, look, like an anime and a manga, they're kind of like peanut butter and jelly. You want to do both. And so that was always part of our strategy. But doing it as an actual prequel, I think, came a little bit later, when we were kind of like, man, I wish we could put more backstory into the first episode. Yeah. But you know, you got to tell a really tight story in 22 minutes. And you got to introduce all the characters, and you don't want it to be heavy with exposition. And so we were like, well, what if we did a issue 0, a prequel issue that told a little bit of the backstory, and just started to set up that we're going to find a way to tell, you know, the lore and the legends of Gabriel and the Guardians. And that's kind of where that came out of.
And I'm excited for it a lot, because like I said, that relationship is going to be synonymous. And then you have, just like you would anticipate, that as we start to put these out, you're going to end up being ahead, and you're going to want to keep up with the manga, right? You're going to want to for sure keep up with it if you want to be for sure in the know. And yeah, you can tell it's a different medium, and you're able to tell maybe some different types of stories there that are obviously connected, very much canon, and that you really just don't have the time to do in 22 minutes, because you got to kind of run a tight ship. So that's really, really exciting, and I know that's going to be very attractive to the audience, because they're going to be all over this, because I think that they're just gonna love it. Like James, obviously, again, with you voicing characters in this. Yeah. In this story, like, okay, you get the pitch. I know you talked about kind of how you got involved, and look, I know that with each sort of project, you're like, okay, I know this is going to hit because of X, Y, and Z reason, but you have this original property here, and like, just it's already popped off, it's already successful as far as I am concerned. But did you also get that feeling when, you know, they pitched the idea to you, and the fact that they were going to be throwing some resources to really make this, like we said, we're competing against these big dogs, but we still want to be competitive. You still wanted it to look good, and these guys came with some great ideas, great animators as well. Like, what was that confidence level when you got pitched that project?
Right. Well, you know, I mean, and it even really ties into how we are all here now tonight talking about the manga, in that was always a part of it. And that, I think, was really attractive to me as a comic book fan. You know, I've been reading comic books since I was a little kid. You know, I was inspired by, ever since I was 4 years old, I wanted to be a voice actor. I wanted to tell stories that way, but I was inspired by comic books that I read, and characters, and, you know, being able to dream about these things. And that was the same narrative that Jason and I think we just kind of connected in that. And so I knew right off the bat that it was going to be really cool. You know, whether or not it was going to get off the ground and it was going to happen the way that it's happened, you never know, right? And you say a little prayer and you hope for the best. But it seemed like they were on track. And then once I started seeing animatics, you know, and the animatics, for those watching or listening in, is, of course, you know, these kind of sketched out moving picture frames of a story to kind of give you a sense of what it's like. You can see some of the animatics, I'm sure, online and such. Oh, yeah. I started seeing how the characters were going to develop and how the story was going to develop. But then watching the finished product, it was just like, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. It is like comic book art come to life in an animated thing. So the coming together of it all was always in Jason's, in his heart and in his mind. And he was always able to kind of portray that to us in our meetings and such. So I was always very excited, and that's why it was great fun to get Matt Lanter involved as well.
Oh, yeah.
You know, who plays Nock, and Matt does an amazing job. Christina Malizia, Christina V. We got, can we say other people, Jason? Can we say well, I know Gabe Patillo. I also just say I'm really grateful that you all dedicated the first episode to Gabe and all too. Yeah. Gabe Patillo was a dear friend of mine. And this last year, sadly, we lost him to a battle with cancer, but he voiced some amazing work in this.
He was a monster, literally.
He was, yeah, he was monsters, and you know, and the guards and all the different characters there, but then we have some other folks coming on.
Vanessa Marshall.
I didn't know if we could say Vanessa. Okay, we can say Vanessa.
Talk about Vanessa.
So we have some other Star Wars dignitaries that are there on this, but I was really just loving hearing what Matt brought to the character of Nock as well, and you know. To get to work with people like this, and we got to record together a couple times, and then we record separately at times, but it was always the vision that you're talking about there coming into play and seeing it come alive through the scripts and their clear, you know, vision of what it's going to be. David is always very clear about that and in his storytelling and such too. So I was thrilled to be a part of something that was doing something really different, was doing something in a style that everybody loves, anime, and then was being able to say, oh, and then there's going to be, you know, a manga that goes with it. That is just like, that's full circle, right? That's how it's supposed to work. I think is, again, talking about independent creations and stuff. I think it's just awesome.
I think that I'm a fan of anime. I grew up watching it. I love Dragon Ball. I loved Cowboy Bebop. I loved Trigun. And I you know, read manga, and so it comes from a place of purity of like, I just love this stuff, and that I wanted to kind of pay homage to this art form that I think is amazing and beautiful, and that can really, only anime can do what it does. Like, you can't really translate that in any other format. It just works so well. When you see movies try to do it, it comes off a little cheesy or whatever. And so I think that was part of it for me, though. Also growing up, I mean, dude, I was huge Masters of the Universe fan. And so if you remember the original Masters of the Universe toys, they came with a comic book inside, a mini comic book tucked in. And so like, that was always, I was like, what, like that sold the show. Like, it actually was like, you would read that, you'd buy the toy. I had the toy before I ever watched the show, and I read the booklet, and then I was like, I gotta watch this show, you know. And I think it even promoted, it was like, this is gonna be an animated TV show. And so like, that always stuck with me. And so it's like this idea of holding something, having something that you can leaf through, that goes along, it's a companion. And then what manga does is it actually goes ahead and says, you know what, actually, this will be the source material. Yeah, this will actually take it. This will come first. We'll go ahead. And that's what we want to do with Rippa. That's why we were so excited about this partnership, because Rippa's like, we can go ahead and we'll get ahead of you guys. We'll start telling your story to people who want to know it before you can even get it out. And I actually think it's amazing, because you know what? You know who Brandon Sanderson is?
Of course.
Okay, Brandon Sanderson. David Cunningham just told me this. Brandon Sanderson talks about how they've done a bunch of research on how people want their stories told, and they want to know the endings. They've actually shown that like, people are more satisfied and like something more if this is like kind of about spoilers. He was kind of like, I hate to break it to you, but you can't actually spoil a fan's good time, because fans actually like something more. They like a story or like a movie more if they have a sense, if they feel like they're on the inside and they know better than the rest of the public. They actually, and so that's what manga provides you.
That's exactly what it gives you.
Opportunity to know something that everybody, you know, and no one else does. And I think that's cool.
That's awesome.
That's true. That's a great point. And yeah, that's what we're gonna try to do with this manga. We're gonna get ahead. It's gonna be a place where you guys you're gonna want to keep up with it, because you're gonna want to be in the know. And especially, it's always cool when that panel does end up making its way to the actual anime, and people can see that in a more animated format, because it's like, again, watching it, it's not even simply about watching it again, but it's watching it in a different format. That's what makes that that's so fun. Yep, right. You guys hear the voices, the sound effects, and all that stuff. So I'm really excited about that. So yeah, James, you know, the reason why I think it's obviously important that we kind of get your insight on the characters that you're developing here, because, well, people don't know, spoiler alert, some of the characters that James voices are in the prequel, right? Okay, so you guys are gonna get to see that, and you know how he sounds as well. So, just James, if you could, just personality wise, just kind of give us the whole spiel about the characters that you kind of have been handling in Gabriel and the Guardians.
Well, it's, you know, Malacros is one that we just, and I keep seeing, so I think it was Kimberly in the chat was like, we want to hear Malacros. We want to hear Malacros. Well, Malacros is, he's a bit of evil with a flair for the dramatic, but, you know, gosh, there's so much I know that I don't want to say, Jason. Yeah. So,
well, there's something interesting, I think, that actually.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I think that with Diano, you came in and did something that none of us expected, because we had this idea. I even had character design. Character design was done.
Totally different, yeah.
Done. And then James came in and did this voice that I immediately that night went like, oh, I'm going back to the drawing board. I'm going to go and redesign Diano based on what I just heard James.
That's cool.
And so there's something fun about, I'm a collaborative person. I hope James would testify to this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The moment you guys came in, I said, I want you to feel like you own these characters.
Yeah. You gave us that freedom to do that, which is great, you know, and it's always wonderful when you do that. We had that with, even with Star Wars, we had that, and that was beautiful. And I think that there was a lot of that too, is you wanted to kind of have that camaraderie that you knew we had, you know, Matt and I had and such, working together before, and that would come from working off of each other, that things are going to change, you know. So even the first episode, the first line that we hear of Malacros, and then when we hear him later, there's little bits and pieces that change as he goes, you know, and same with Dianel. Dianel was, you know, Gabriel. The time has come, you know, and it's all this very kind of, you know, almost Gandalf kind of way of doing it. It's actually very close to what I did with Plo Koon in the Clone Wars before he was filtered and the mask sound and pitched a little and all of that. Yeah. And so it's a little like that. And then, but Malacros is pretty original in that he's just a little more, I don't know. I mean, he's got a bit of an accent, which is always fun. Always makes you a little more evil when you have an accent, I suppose. I don't know. Or the opportunity to be that, or charming. I don't know. They say Obi-Wan is kind of a troll online, so maybe I don't know.
We're going to have the opportunity to hear, you know, Malacros, I think, as we go back into the history, as we go back and tell the story.
Yeah.
How did Malacros get to become this masked character, you know? Yeah. And I think what we're going to find is we're going to get to hear these different over the millennia, right? Mm-hmm. Who was Malacros? How did he get to be? And you'll hear you'll hear this, I think, a gradation of the character, which will be cool.
Yeah. It's exciting, and it is fun to see. And then, you know, I get to do some other little voices here and there every once in a while, which is always good. When you get to be like, for voice actors, it's always fun when we get to be like Guy 3 in the background.
So, yeah.
Hey, how's it going? Man, I'm just over here. You know, it's just like the voices that maybe like you have like one or two lines you can say in, you know, I don't like that kind of guy, you know, you're like, so anytime you can throw those in, or monsters. And I think I got to do some creature sounds a little here and there too in there, which is fun. So, you know, I just love it. I'm blessed to do what I love. Again, as I say, since I was 4, I wanted to make voices in cartoons. And so any opportunity I can, but especially when it's special stuff like this. So thrilled to be a part of it.
And just to kind of piggyback on that, I know this is a little bit of a side note, not so much just Gabriel focused. If you have kind of any perspective advice, because there's a lot of people, I've seen some, I see it in your names, chat VO, like some of you guys, you have aspirations to kind of do that. And I mean, again, you've been literally doing this longer than I've been alive, and I love it. And, you know, I for sure would want you to just give, again, any kind of perspective that you can offer to these aspiring voice actors and voice actresses out there.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, it's very different from when I started. You know, back when I started, I went into the local radio station and asked how you get into radio. And I literally started sweeping up, worked for free in there and hung out, met the DJs, watched them do their shows, learned mic technique, locked myself in the studio at night until one night it was like out of a movie. You know, the program director said, the overnight DJ didn't show up. You're on, kid. And, you know, I got my chance and I went out and I started doing that. And then I knew I could do different voices and impressions of people. Well, wait a second, Doc. You mean to tell me you built a time machine at the DeLorean? The way I see it, Marty, if you're going to build a time machine into a car, why not do it some style? You know, I would do, you know, Christopher Walken saying, you know, Gabriel's good. I could use a little more cowbell. And, you know, I just knew I could do these fun voices, but then how do I craft that? How do I turn that into something? Here's the big question I have for all of you out there watching and writing in the comments and stuff. If you're somebody that wants to be a voice actor, here's a very important thing you have to do. Like the sound of your own voice, at least be able to tolerate it. Most people don't like the sound of their own voice. They hear it and they go, oh gosh, I sound all high pitched. I sound weird. And if you don't understand how your own voice sounds and works, you can't make it do as many fun things. So if you like, at least, you know, you don't have to, you know, love it, but at least you tolerate it. Then you go, now I can take it and I can give it a little texture over here, or I can give it an accent here, or I can bring it down in here, you know, and you can play with it more because you're not in your head about who you are. So that's key one. And then the second one is D. Bradley Baker, the voice of all the clones in the Clone Wars, and is just a giant in the world of voiceover, has a website called iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. Check out iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. Yuri Lowenthal, huge in the world of voiceover. He's the voice of Spider-Man. He and his wife, Tara Platt, wrote a book called Voiceover Voice Actor. And you can go to voiceovervoiceactor.com and check that out. Great resources. You can go to my YouTube channel, jamesarnoldtaylor.com. Check out Watch Me in the Booth. That's the one thing. I have a lot of videos of me in my booth doing what I do because I feel like that's the way you learn sometimes. That's certainly how I learned, watching the DJs back in the 80s, watching them, you know, doing their shows. And that's how I learned mic technique and all of that. So I'd say it's a different world than when I started, but at the same time, because now it's social media, you have a popular social media thing. You got something that goes viral. All of a sudden you're getting attention. There's people out there, young people doing voices. I can't believe some of the stuff they're able to do. I have a one-man stage show I do, and years ago, I had this video went kind of viral on my YouTube channel where I go through about 120 voices because I see they're all connected. You know, like if you start with my voice and you go and you turn it into Michael J. Fox, and then you drop it down and you get Shia LaBeouf, and then you make it a little more nasal, you get Jay Baruchel, you know, Hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon. So you morph your voice around. But there's people doing this stuff now. So there's so many opportunities. So just be out there, be present, have social media as your friend, because that's how you're going to get discovered, I think, at this day and age.
If I could plug something too, find a community, right? I think that, and so if you guys don't mind, we've got a Gabriel Discord, and we're doing all kinds of part of our goal with our Gabriel Discord is to demystify the creation process of making a show. And so we're bringing that. I love that. We want to we're putting it all out there. We're bringing the fans in. You know, part of our pitch originally was like, you can be a show creator, right? Join Gabriel and the Guardians, and you are now a show creator as well. And so like what we just did a contest on the Discord 2 weeks ago where we had fans just submit a voice test, and then the winners, we're going to use them in our motion comics, like in the motion of our comics on our socials, where we said, hey, if you win, we're going to use your voices, right? That's awesome. And so we're trying to create opportunities to bring the fans in ways and help them, right? Because maybe you do that and then your voice is actually really good, and then you do more, and then you're getting jobs, and then right.
Yeah, and all of us came from somewhere. You know, when I was a kid trying to do voices, and I first did my first, you know, video game was called Distrega back in the 90s. It was a Sega game, and you know, I didn't know that I would end up having this career. I just was hopeful. So there's people right now alive and well doing these voices. They have no idea their career could blow up all these years from now. So I love that part that you're giving those opportunities, Jason. That's so cool.
They were trying, man.
Yeah, now that's what it's about. I mean, the book that's shipping right now for us in Bloodroot, that was a fan art contest winner that did that whole that whole book, you know. So it's awesome. It does. I love what James brings up about, like, you know, the social media aspect of it, because I know I talk about this all the time in comics, that Discovery is a lot different from when a lot of us were coming up. It's just not the same. And I mean that in more of a positive sense. Like, there's no, I know you know better than anybody, James, like that there's always been that sort of that gatekeeper element of it, where you always would hit a ceiling, right? Because you had to start knowing people. But now, I mean, people are going viral, people are just building these communities, and they never had to go through what people deemed as the proper channels. And I know that can be frightening. I love with you being around as long as you have, that you're open to that you're like, this is awesome, this is creating opportunity. I know some look at that like it's a threat because they had their model that worked for them for all these years. But I just love it. It means more opportunity for especially younger guys out there and gals that want to go do great stuff.
And Eric, I mean, look, like I didn't get to talk about this that much tonight, but like, that's where this came from. The Gabriel and the Guardians was, you know, me. Like, I think you can respect this. If you create something, you have to believe in it. You have to be the best salesman and the best. If you don't believe in it, no one will. But if you believe in it, some other people will. And so I just believed in it, man. And I didn't. And it's good to not know who the gatekeepers are, because then you might knock on some doors, you might kick on some fences that are fake. They're just there to keep people out, but they are actually not propped up by anything. And I did all kinds of stuff that people were like, you can't do that. You can't just message producers on LinkedIn without, you have to go through an agent. And I was like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I didn't know. And that thing,
we wouldn't have met otherwise.
100%, man. 100%. And I wouldn't have met David. I wouldn't have met Al. I wouldn't have got connected to Angel. But I kicked those fence posts because I didn't know any better.
Yeah, that's how it goes, and I love it. Like I said, I love it. It can be unorthodox, and I think that's what's happening. And people are kind of finding their own way to do whatever they aspire to do, and I love that. I love that about everything that we do. And again, all that kind of that organic nature brought all of us kind of together naturally, because like I said, when we first, that's what I love about this. Believe it or not, before this Gabriel and the Guardians thing popped off, we had all with like RippaVerse and this whole thing, we had met each other on completely different terms, right? Yeah. And I know we're all men of faith, and I don't think that was an accident by any means, right? At all. That something like we kind of just happened, and here we are. And I love everything about it. It's again a project that I believe so much in, and I'm just blessed to be a part of it, man. I'm really thankful.
I think there are a couple of things that are important when you have to, like I said, you have to believe in what you're making. You do. You have to be. But I really look like I would not be here if I didn't believe that there was a destiny and a purpose in what I do. Yeah. And that, look, you don't have to. You don't have to, but I do. And there's no doubt in my mind that there is an orchestrator to what has happened here. I just know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, just I want to get through some of these super chats. Some of them did have questions and all that about some of us here. Our man's Jay, of course.
There he is. All right,
the voice of Bluey. Yes, that's very true. We've talked about that, and big shout out to Jay, and he was the first book. It's funny, this whole RippaSend thing happens because he's putting the bug in my ear, right? He's like, we have RippaVerse. It's taking off, and he's like, hey man, I got this idea, I would love for you to publish. You got the infrastructure. And I was like, I don't know if we're there quite yet. I don't know. And then that, it's the seed that gets planted, right? Because then it's in my head, and then I'm thinking about it more, and I was like, well, what if we did do this thing? It's like kind of create our own thing where they get to do their thing, and we just kind of just help them send it over the finish line. And it was like, the more we thought about it, the more it made sense. So I always bring this up when talking about Jay, because a lot of it was obviously worked perfectly, because he ended up being, though it was for Green, not Blue, though we did end up republishing Blue, he was the first creator that we had the opportunity to work with. So I always give that shout out to Jay, man, because
paved the pathway for us.
Yeah,
so,
it goes. It leads into this, right? It's awesome. So big shout out to Jay, man, and y'all can go to RippaSend and also get when you go, you can check them out at the same time. You can get Gabriel and the Guardians just for just $5, and if you want to go over there and get green and blue, you can grab that as part of the same order. I know this was for Johnny before he had to get out. It says with a 5, congrats to the crew here. Big fan of Johnny since the 2000s. Each go, yeah. That is sure. We got Emily with a 2. Happy Wednesday and congrats on manga.
Emily.
Yeah, shout out Emily, much love. Just City Villain with a 10 says, I'm new to manga. Will the series be a standalone or only to promote the animated series, or will it be the start of its own series? Do I need a backstory to this book to follow on? Well, and I know Jason can speak to this probably a little more than I can, but the first book is a prequel. Okay. So this is it kind of sets the scene for everything here. As the series goes on, it will be kind of again, nice little synergy between the two. But as with anything like anime, we're gonna get ahead. We'll end up being ahead of where the anime actually. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that in a lot of ways, actually, it's going to get up to a point where the manga is going to be where you get the new Gabriel story first. It will be the go-to place. If you want to, in fact, I'll go ahead and say this may make some fans a little sad, but you want to know what happens after episode 1, you're going to find out in the manga before you find out in an anime in an anime.
True.
So so I think that I don't think you need to know any backstory. I think you'll be able to follow along the story, but also as we go, the manga will have more because that just format will allow for a little bit more backstory. We're limited in the episode. We can only do so many episodes per season, and we can only do so many minutes. But I think the manga is gonna, and this follows the format of manga. A lot of times you'll find out, like Dragon Ball Super, there are complete storylines that don't end up being in the actual season, in the actual anime. It skips stuff that's in the manga, but then it's not in the actual series.
Right. Good point. Thank you to that. Sin City, we got Master Swag King again. I know this is for Johnny, so just wanted to say, as someone who's seen Johnny's career since Mighty Morphin Power Rangers season 2, then to him being a voice actor, thank you for I guess so many amazing memories in my life. That is awesome. I love to hear that. Yep. Shout out. And Igor, our own Igor here at the Rippaverse, with a 10 says, can't wait to read Gabriel Guardians #0. Johnny Yong Bosch. Was the first anime I watched dubbed. Okay. And it was all because of you, and English is not even my first language.
That's
amazing. It is Brazilian. That's true.
Cool.
He's done so many characters. And again, James has obviously as well. When you see this like rap sheet of just this CVS receipt of characters that both of them have done, it's awesome.
I was just at CVS today, and I got one of those receipts. That's perfect.
It's still as long as ever. I was there the other day. I was giving some wipe stuff. It's like these receipts are still ridiculously long, man. I'm just going to check out one thing. Joshua Berrylow, who is actually he did a cover again, and it's funny. We talk about the fan interaction. He won fan art contest as well, and he ended up doing a cover for us as the winner. So much love to you, Joshua. With a 10 says Ratchet and Clank is the GOAT. God bless. That is awesome.
God bless you, Joshua.
before we get out of here, I want to go round table. Jason, same thing I kind of did with Johnny. Just go ahead and sell the people on this anime, which again, you get the prequel manga for issue 0 over at RippaSend.com.
So yeah, I think you're gonna want to get in on this thing because we're doing something I think new. It's what we've heard from the industry since we started. The resonating response has been, wow, no one's done this so far.
Yeah,
no, like we're telling an original fictional fantasy action-packed story that is not pulling from Greek mythology, not pulling from Roman or Egyptian mythology. We're pulling from ancient Hebrew, Sumerian, Mesopotamian mythology. And just there's not a lot of that out there. There's
Right.
not a lot of ancient Mesopotamian mythology fantasy stories. And so on top of that, we're pulling narratives from the genesis of our civilization. Literally, these books that we're pulling our stories from are some of the oldest texts in our world.
Oh.
These are ancient tales told in a new way, and I think you're going to love it.
Awesome. What about you, James?
Oh man, I'm just I'm thrilled for everybody to get to see it all as it kind of unfolds here. That's always the most exciting thing when you're part of any type of franchise or any story that you've been working on for, I mean, it's been actually, that's the crazy part. It's been a couple of years now that we've known each other and been working on stuff. So what's to come is I think the most exciting part for everybody. And it's like, Eric, you and I were talking about this the other day, the actual having hard copies of things, actual things, really is special to me too. So that's why I love the tie-in that's going on here with both of you, and creating this in a way to where we can have it with us too. We can, I mean, again, these are the things that inspired me as a kid. This is why, I'm sitting in a room full of all this cool stuff because we all got to be able to dream, man. We all have to be able to, God is good and the world is tough, and we need some escapism too sometimes. And that's what I just bless you all for what you do in creating it. I'm the lucky, guy that gets to do voices for it, but what you all create is wonderful. And so,
I think if you want to dive into something that is, dive into a world of behemoths and Nephilim and Leviathan, right? That's where this is, like James, you were saying, like, it's a different thing. It's kind of a new thing, but also if you're a Bible nerd, like our episode is packed full of fun, Old Testament Torah references. So if you're like, I did a podcast with Deep Thoughts, and he was just like, this is a show for Bible nerds. And I was like, that's what I think so, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. The Easter eggs are biblical. That's the cool part.
We went deep.
Yeah.
I love that. Love that. Well, y'all can pick this up again at RippaSend.com, but be sure to go to Angel.com, become a guild member. You don't have to. You can sign up for free. You guys that have been purchasing the manga, that we've been sending out the email to you directly for the link, so you can go check out the entire first episode. But if you want just the first 11 minutes, it's easy and neat. It's right there on our YouTube. Go check it out, and then of course consider becoming an Angel Guild member and watching the full episode, getting to some behind the scenes as well, and being able to keep up with this as we enter into the next episodes. Gentlemen, I appreciate y'all so much for joining us. This was awesome. It's been very, very exciting day, and I can't wait for us to do many more of these, definitely as the series develops. So be sure, again, I got all the links for you to everything in the description. They're also pinned in the comment if you are watching us live. We got one last gentleman that came in, to Jason Moody. I had no idea you were connected with Mr. July. I was already sold just from the promotion I've been seeing on the web. Now I'm super stoked to check it out. And look, this is why this whole thing made sense. Obviously, we do the publishing thing, we do the comic stuff. These guys are some of the best and the brightest minds in animated field. You see the voice acting and actresses, the cast. It's just everybody is firing on all cylinders, and as we all just kind of come together to really push this property, look, that's what it's about. And like I said, I don't know if I can even point to a more organic way that this all happened and all this lined up than this right now. This is a story we're gonna be able to tell for years to come, because believe it or not, when I first met James, when I first met Jason, we were not talking about this. This was not this was not the thing. And then yet here we are collaborating here. So there's going to be many more collaborations in the future. Again, I thank y'all so much. We will leave this live. This won't go behind the membership wall over here on Rippaverse. We want everybody to see this. Again, go over to RippaSend.com. We'll have those books out to you soon enough, and I can't wait for you to read Gabriel and the Guardians, issue number 0. And we'll keep you guys posted on as we have the new artist and we get going on that. You're going to want to keep tabs on this, because as Jason had mentioned, really the definitive version, I mean, it's going to end up becoming just naturally, it's going to end up becoming a manga because of how far ahead that it's going to be. So be sure to check that out. And again, James, you too as well, brother. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, great to see
and
you.
Y'all follow him on all forms of social media, again, with the insight as far as the voice acting work. It's not a whole lot of guys as good as he is in the business. So much love to him, and appreciate you so much for being there. All right, guys. I don't know when the next time I've streamed probably way more than I have this week than I have in a long time. So I'm going to go get back to work. Thank y'all so much. We appreciate you. Until next time, y'all be easy, and God bless y'all.
Bless you.